started. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? And what did we learn? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into.
The Craig L. Hayes Show. Just thinking, where we talk about everything else.
Well, hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show. I am Craig L. Hayes, and turn it up just a little bit. I think I knocked that fader down a bit. There we go. That's better. Hey, anyways, I am Craig L. Hayes. This is Just Thinking, where we talk about everything else. Today's show is being recorded here in the Northern Command Center in Enterprise, Utah. And what is it today? Today is October 17th, 2025. Today's show may be a little controversial. It may be disturbing. It may make people go, I don't know if I want to listen to this guy anymore, but please bear with me for just a little bit. Let's get past the title of the show and have a true and honest conversation. The title of the show is God Does Not Exist. Now what? Let you think about that for just a second. God does not exist. Now what? The title does not represent my actual beliefs, but so many people have that belief that God does not exist. Agnostics, atheists, and other people. People who decide to worship other deities like, I don't know, Satan, the tree, the earth, politics. But let's be honest about it. Let's have a conversation, and not a conversation. You're not going to listen to me, but you can at least think about what I'm going to say. If God does not exist, and somehow, some way, evolution actually took place, the one in a quadrillion chance that it actually worked, because everything happening and forming the way it does for the world, for the universe to work the way it does by chance is totally mind-blowing. People would actually think that and believe that there isn't somebody at the heart of it controlling it. Because all you have to do is understand that everything in this universe, everything on this earth, everything, us, operates on a razor's edge. It operates that it could all fall apart in a nanosecond if it doesn't stay on that razor's edge of function. Change one little thing, change one part of the formula or the physics of gravity, the universe disintegrates. It can't be held together if one tiny bit changes. And you may look at that and say, oh, well, that's just because that's the way it worked out over, billions of years, and it all just exploded and turned into all this, and it rode its own razor's edge. Oh. So just by chance, it did that. People always talk about evolution, animals, how much they change, that, certain creatures never had eyes. And then all of a sudden, somehow, they got up, because they lived in the deep water and they didn't need eyes. But then they started swimming up and getting a little bit higher up in the water. And all of a sudden, they needed eyes. And lo and behold, they had eyes and they could start seeing things around them. All right, well, evolution, even if a creature figures out there's got to be a better way for us to have, be able to know what's around us. And I don't know what that is. And they figured out and go, if I could only visualize. Now we're talking fish, as if they actually talk like that. How do they pass that down to their new little fishes? And those fishes don't get that inheritance, that thought process. So once again, evolution falls apart under its own weight, under its own belief that just because something may figure out an animal, which animals don't have reason, logic, and ability to think things and problems out. They're instinctual. But let's say one got really super smart. And we go back to what they say our closest DNA relatives are the apes. Okay, well, the smartest ape of all of them is about a 4-year-old child compared to us. It's as smart as a 4-year-old child. But somehow, some way, from that ape lineage, some super duper smart monkeys figured out that we needed to be smarter and eventually build spaceships. I know that sounds preposterous, but come on. To me, the very thought of evolution. Now, can certain animals evolve to a certain degree? Well, we see this in nature in certain things, that animals will grow to the size of their environment or shrink down. We know that woolly mammoths on certain islands out off the Pacific Northwest, they have bones of woolly mammoths that are actually small. Small like the size of a horse or small like the size of a dog or whatever. That's because they didn't have the food source that would sustain larger animals like their cousins that lived on the mainland. Have no problem believing that animals can take and change a little bit as far as sizes and stuff like that. But that's about it. And you take a goldfish, you put him in a small bowl, he'll stay small. You put a goldfish in a big pond, he grows to be a bigger one, like a koi, something like that. They'll get to be bigger because they fit their environment. They grow to fit their environment. Doesn't mean they grew eyeballs from the bottom of the ocean because they decided they want to look around and see what was on the planet. To believe something, you have to understand it. You have to really review it and look at it from all sides and go, is this really feasible? Now, most scientists, physicists and stuff like that, they talk about it and they're all die hard. There's no God. This all just happened. Okay, that's not being honest. That's not looking at things with an open mind and an understanding that it's not the way they believe. And I would question whether they even would ask the question, is this really possible? I don't know. I don't know if any of them are that honest with themselves and that honest to say and really look at what they believe the stuff they're promoting is actually true, or it's just it's groupthink. Because I don't care what scientists say. They go, well, we're there to prove it with science and experimentations and all this stuff. But yet they all think the same for the most part But there are a bunch of physicists that say, no, it's impossible for all this to happen without somebody controlling it. Someone has to be in control of all this stuff. It can't just happen. We have not ever seen, with all of our scientific experimentation, with all of our stuff, evolution. We have never seen evolution. We have never seen monkeys, apes, whatever you want to call it, transform into the next level. We have different bones of different, of species and stuff like that, and they put it into a line and say, well, it's obvious that this was a monkey and this turned into somebody who walked kind of upright, and then they got a little taller and they got smarter and they got, okay, what all that is, I don't know. But to sit there and make the jump that somehow you go from being a monkey to being a human being flying around in space, I don't believe that happens. So let's get back to the crux of this. God does not exist. Now what? If there is no God, and evolution is actually accurate, and man is not regulated or controlled, does not have any way of being regulated. I'm looking for some other words here. I can't come up with them right now. By a belief system of good and evil, then how do we get to that point where we have laws and belief systems based on God's laws that make it a place where man can live in harmony in any way, shape, or form? I don't see that being feasible, or the ability is not there. If God does not exist, and this world is it, and when you die, done. Blackness, you're done. Nothing happens. Because there is no God, there is no rewards, there is no punishments. Then what's the point? What was the point of you being here if all there is to it is blackness at the end? Why don't you just go live a life of carnal desires, murdering other people, stealing everything you can, not having any kind of a civil society? Because without some kind of mechanism in place, known as, we'll just start with the Ten Commandments or the laws of God, how do you create a civil society? How do you form laws that protect your rights, and who comes up with those rights? My belief is our rights are divinely inspired and given to us by God. If there's no God, where do you get your rights? From other people? Do you institute some kind of government agency that tells you what your rights are going to be? Do you get together with other like-minded people and say, what we have to do is make up some laws so, we have the right to say what we want to say and, think what we want to think, and people can report on us if we're doing stuff bad, and you have a right to have a gun to protect yourself, and you don't have to. Really? You think man is smart enough to come up with laws like that on their own if there wasn't some kind of basis like the Ten Commandments? I think man is wonderful, but I don't think he's that smart or has that much compassion for his fellow man. Why would you want to have that kind of compassion for your fellow man if it means nothing? Jesus tells us to love our neighbors as ourselves. Would you have that ability to come up with that on your own? Or would you just have some kind of institute, some kind of government that is totally powerful, dictates your abilities, rights, laws, and can take those from you anytime it wants? Hello, England. Hello, Europe. Hello, Australia, New Zealand, and the rest of you. You have no rights other than the ones the government gives you. How's that working out for you? Look at the struggle we have in this country with the rights that are in our Constitution, and you have government agencies, you have government entities, you have people, mainly Marxist, Socialist, Democrats, who abuse those laws and our rights every chance they get. And these are our rights in our Constitution. These aren't just man-made laws put in there by a government agency. So if we have to constantly fight for our rights that are listed, and given to us by divine authority, if we have to constantly be on guard and fight for them, what chance do you have if a government decides to give or take those rights from you or give them to you? You have zero. So what are your options after that? Get a bunch of like-minded other people that are smart enough like you to take and say, we're going to rewrite this thing and take over the government. We're going to start a war and we're going to fight them and we're going to take over and write these laws and make these things and put it in our own Constitution. Really? You got enough bright people like that? The people who wrote our Constitution believed in the Judeo-Christian authority of the Bible. Old Testament, New Testament. They believed in Anglo-Saxon law. They believed in taking every part of the best thoughts of government all around the world and putting them into our Constitution. That is a miracle that we have, and they gave the credit to God that these rights are inalienable, that we are endowed by our Creator, our God. Now, if you're Jewish, your God is still our God. You just don't believe in Jesus. As Christians, we get, God the Father, and we get God the Son. So, what is the likelihood of that ever happening? Those type of inspirational thoughts, those type of mental acuity to come up with these things on your own or with a group even. I'm going to tell you right now, I think it's pretty much going to be close to zero. You may come up with bits and pieces of it. You may come up with parts of it and decide we've got to have a better system going because this is all just terrible and such, and nothing's coming down. Or you just take it and your civil society falls completely apart. You go into anarchy, and that's the end. If we don't have a civil society, if we don't have a God, if God does not exist, then it's the philosophies of man and the laws of man that will take hold. And I don't know if anybody's looked around, but even with a biblical history, Old Testament and New Testament, just go in this nation alone. We are a Judeo-Christian nation. Now, other nations are allowed to worship how they please. That's part of our Constitution. We put that in there so that everybody could come and worship how they please. But we are a Judeo-Christian nation. That's not going to change. Hopefully. Without the beliefs of that Judeo-Christian system, without the civil society, and we only rely on the philosophies of man, what do we get? Well, it's very simple. We get philosophies such as Karl Marx and Marxism, communism, socialism. And where does that lead us? Well, we've only seen 100 million people die because of that, following that philosophy. And the people who actually still believe in that today are so mind numb to reality that they believe they can still institute it in this country and it'll work better than anywhere else. It's failed everywhere. The philosophies of Karl Marx have failed in every country it's been tried in. The only one still standing is China and North Korea and Cuba. Cuba is basically a nothing country. North Korea, a nothing country. If North Korea didn't have a couple of nuclear missiles, then they'd be a third world country. Just like, well, for the most part, Russia. During the Soviet Union, if Russia didn't have that huge military and nuclear stockpile, they would have been a third world country, just like Mexico or name any other little third world country in Africa or whatever. How did that work out for the people who bought into that? All the people who were under the Soviet Empire, the Communist Empire of China. How's it working in North Korea or Cuba? How's it working right now in a new communist nation called Venezuela? Death, despair, the loss of hope. So we've seen what happens when people who do not believe in God, who do not believe there is a God, rely totally on their own philosophies. And all you have to do is take the next step, and then if you get to the point where nothing matters, the only way communist empires work at all is because they don't believe in a God, even though they did at one time. And now they've instituted Marxism, communism, socialism, fascism, whatever ism you want to call it. And millions of people die under the banner of what's best for the state. So if you don't have the state as that thing, and it's just everybody lives for themselves and does whatever they want, and there's no afterlife, then it's a free-for-all. So the bottom line of this is very simple. This episode was called God Does Not Exist, Now What? What would happen if he doesn't exist? I think we've really pointed out a whole bunch of possibilities. Pointed out a couple of things that say, hey, if he's not there, then how did any of this happen? By chance? A 1 in a billion, a 1 in a trillion chance of it actually happening? With all of our marvelous technologies and all the chemicals we have and all the enzymes and everything like that, have we been able to create from scratch, means nothing, a blade of grass, a flower, a tree? No. Yet all these chemicals and all this stuff that was in the universe just miraculously turned themselves into these things. I'm just saying. Evolution just doesn't work. It falls apart under its own weight. I do believe in God. I know who He is. He is the Father. He is the Creator. He is the designer and master of this universe. His Son, Jesus Christ, who I also worship, is His, what do we want to call Him? He is the contractor who helped build this universe. And who all in this universe owe their eternities to because of His sacrifice in Gethsemane and on the cross. God does exist. Jesus does exist. Well, I hope you found this stuff a little bit interesting and let you think about it. I heard someone say, God does not exist. And I was like, well, yeah, well, if not, then now what? And I went, hey, that'd be a good title for a show. And that's this show. So we will be back with more shows. But thanks for listening to the Craig L. Hayes Show, Just Thinking. It's a pleasure having people here listen. Remember the other shows we do have. It's Showtime, the Craig L. Hayes Show, and Main Street, the Craig L. Hayes Show. 3 different podcasts out there on YouTube, and hope you will listen to them, enjoy them, listen. What do they go? Follow, like. What's the other one? Like, follow. I can't remember the other one. Oh, everybody, we'll be catching up with you later. You've been listening to the Craig L. Hayes Show, Just Thinking.